Okay, everybody, welcome back to another mini episode of the Accommodation Show. I am joined by the incredible and wonderful Tim Rosolio from Expedia Group. How are you?
Terrific to be here. You know, what can I say? Another continent, another conference.
Yep.
More good times with Bart.
Oh.
This time in your home ground.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Because literally, I think about a week and a half ago, we were in Phoenix together. Do you remember that little table there?
I think we had lunch.
We had some lunch.
Phoenix, Arizona, Brisbane, Australia.
Brisbane, Australia. A few conferences. We just need to get you over for Strive.
Yeah.
Just saying. So putting you on the spot.
I got my eyes on it.
Cool. Look, it's just a privilege to be able to talk to you. You've clearly got huge amounts of experience in the industry. You're leading a sizable team. You're going to conferences. You're going to events, and it's really cool because you've got an angle on the industry that very few people on the planet will actually have. So it's a real privilege and honor to be able to talk to you about it. And what we're doing, actually, before we do, can you just introduce yourself to those of you that aren't sure who Tim is?
Tim Rosolio, Vice President of Vacation Rental Partnerships with Expedia Group. You know, if people ask, what does that mean? It means that if Vrbo or Stays or Expedia or Hotels.com are stores, it is my job to stock the shelves with the best vacation rentals that we can find. And that entails a variety of things. It entails acquiring new properties and also optimizing existing inventory. And part of that is running a team of roughly 250 global account managers that work with some of the best property managers in the industry to make sure that they can produce on all of our channels.
Yeah, wow. So 250 people that you're looking after, but then I think it probably extends a bit more beyond that, right? Is that the core team or is it bigger than that?
So that's sort of the sales and account management team. The rest of it doesn't report into me. I mean, I think I work very closely, people that manage our marketing with people that build our product.
Yeah.
And we, as sort of a vacation rental leadership team, drive the agenda for the business. But, you know, that's a group effort.
Gotcha. So your key stakeholders in terms of like sort of outward facing would be the guests, because you need to find the inventory for the guests and that sort of thing. But then also homeowners or property managers looking after properties so that you've got that inventory. So those two pieces of the puzzle that you're sort of thinking about.
Yeah, I would think of it as like understanding what the guest wants and being able to articulate that to the property managers and individual owners that list on our platforms to help them be successful. But like my main points of contact, when I go to these conferences, I spend some time listening to the content, but I also just generally make the rounds and make sure that I'm getting feedback and having discussions with some of the more prominent property managers in the area, which is why I see you at conferences all the time, right? Because it's so important that I understand the global perspective and how maybe some of the nuances of Australia might be different than the nuances that would exist in America or EMEA or elsewhere.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yep.
That's one of the reasons why I go to the US. There was recently a conference in Canada in Banff as well, which is a new territory.
That sounds nice.
And it was nice, and we're going to New Zealand as well, and we really want to understand those local territories. For me, when I head over to VRMA in the States, it's an opportunity to meet all of the bigger property managers and to really understand what it is that they're doing and how they're operating and the differences and the intricacies of that sort of thing. Obviously, you're going to Europe and on those different conferences, and is there anything like tangible that you can point like at just saying, you know, there are these key differentiators between different territories or these key learnings that you've got from different territories, or is it all just that it all depends?
I think the different regions are in different states. I would say that in particular for the US and for Australia and New Zealand, there's actually relatively similar dynamics of during the pandemic, you saw this tremendous growth of demand.
Yep.
After that tremendous growth of demand, there were a lot of people that really said, wow, like, I have this opportunity to make money as a short-term rental operator and started loading on supply.
Yeah.
What we've generally found is that as demand has softened just to like a more normal state, a state that's a hell of a lot better than 2019, but a more normal state, there's still healthy demand, but the distribution of that demand across all of the various inventory that exists out there, it's less per property.
Yes.
And so much of that now comes down to like expectation settings for property managers with individual owners and understanding also what are the changes that you perhaps would need to make in order to attract that demand, because there's just so much supply on the market. Within EMEA, I think the explosion of demand was less dramatic. The explosion of supply after that explosion of demand was less dramatic. And as such, I would say that there were less bubbles. There were less bubbles that could potentially pop.
Yeah.
And the supply growth is still steady there, and the occupancy is a little more steady rather than some of the tectonic plates that I would say are moving in America and in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, fascinating. That's a really cool insight to actually see how it works differently. And then so do you feel that because you get to see it from such a zoomed out level that you can actually add value to people because you're like, actually I can see what's about to happen in 3 to 6 months? Or is it a bit more like COVID where we just didn't know what was going to happen next and we're kind of just trying to sustain ourselves? Because one of the conversations I've had with a few people actually has been bed down a bit and create a lot of resilience in your business, the same way that we did when COVID hit. It was like, well, get back to basics, get back to bare bones, but here I feel that there is more ability to predict a bit more about the future. What are your feelings?
I think there's absolutely an opportunity to coach the partners on how to sort of take advantage of the existing market dynamics that exist. And what I would say about America and Australia and New Zealand, you probably need to think about optimizing your existing book of business, perhaps more than thinking about how do I make sure that I'm constantly adding new homeowners. Yeah. Because I think there's not necessarily as many tailwinds behind that as we might have seen 2 years ago. And the other thing I would consider is just, you saw here at the conference, all the platforms are doubling down on quality. And what that means is if you have poor properties or if you have underlying owners that are creating poor experiences for travelers, that's going to hurt you as a property manager. And as such, I might even have some tough conversations about like, I need you as an owner to start getting on board with how we want this to operate, or perhaps they maybe shouldn't be part of your program. Like in all of the regions, we face this problem with like host cancellations because an underlying owner doesn't manage their calendar and they say, oh, like I see that we have a booking, but I was planning on using it that day. Yeah. And that's hurting the property manager because it's a cancellation that's hitting their account. Yeah. And that's a problem.
Yeah, wow, fascinating. So standardization is sort of one of those words that was sort of bandied about a few years ago. And I think there's been a lot more of a conscious effort amongst the OTAs actually to now really look at that inventory and that customer experience, which I don't feel that it was the same. It wasn't as urgent before as it is now. What changed? What has changed? Am I right? Maybe I'm wrong.
100%.
Like, yeah?
100%. I mean, I think for us in particular, listen, there's plenty of poor experiences that can happen in this category. That's the nature of this fragmented inventory, but the really bad experience is the cancellation. Yeah. And even within cancellations, there's kind of a spectrum. There's the whole like 10 months before my stay and I made a booking and the very next day I got a cancellation. Like that's a bad experience. It's not a catastrophic experience, but it's a bad experience that we want. But the thing that we need to totally eradicate is like you're on the plane to Hawaii. You booked this 10 months ago. You land in Hawaii and discover that you have been canceled on. Like that's a catastrophic experience. Correct. And that is a traveler that will never come back to vacation rentals again. Correct. Yeah. So I think certainly us, and I can't speak for the other platforms, but if you look at what they're doing, I think everybody's really trying to raise the bar of the carrots and sticks that are associated with not canceling or canceling in our industry. Yeah. There was a property manager that said to me once, cancellations are just part of the industry. That's the way it works. And I said, like with all due respect, we collectively need to change that. Yeah, I think so for sure. And all it takes is for you to be on the other side of the equation and you go and start to travel. And then when you're booking a short-term rental, having anxiety it's not good. And we can't sustain ourselves as an industry. And I know that myself. If I book a hotel, I don't really get that anxious. I know I'm pretty much going to be looked after, especially if it's name brand. Then book a short-term rental, even with one of the bigger brands. How am I going to get in? And I'll give you an example of experience. You need to get the key from the lockbox. You need the app, so I had to download the app to get the code, and then go and get the key. But the key was in the basement of the car park, and there's no internet. So then I can't get it, so I have to go back out with all my bags to then go and get the key. So it's that sort of thing where you've got the bad experience, and that's even with a bigger brand. So, and you've probably been flying all day. Yeah, we're dead tired. 24 hours, so I can completely understand that that's a priority, and I can imagine as well that there's a lot more. Another big topic has been the algorithm as such, and ranking higher on an OTA, and I imagine that there's a lot more work being done by companies like you guys to make sure that the right kind of behavior from a property manager or an individual owner is right, and bring them more to the top, because that experience is going to be more consistent for their guests. Absolutely. I mean, I think the name of the game for a long time was always conversion-based sort. The properties that people see and book, you put towards the top. Sure, yeah. But the evolution that I think we're working on is, it's not just about conversion, but it's about lifetime value of the customer. And part of the lifetime value of the customer is making sure that they have a good experience. So that entails like, some of these properties are not instant book. Accept the booking. Some of it then is about not canceling the booking. Some of that is about having the right content on your property details page so that people have a flavor of what they're getting into. Part of that is shortly before the stay, certainly within 72 hours prior to the stay, you let them know either this is how you get in, or this is, I'm telling you right now that I will tell you the specific codes of how you get in within this period of time. And then obviously, post-stay, do you get that 5-star review? And that's how we think of not just delivering a traveler for a specific stay, but you're delivering a traveler that hopefully is a VR traveler for life.
Yeah, that lifetime value. It's the first time in 4 years that anyone has said lifetime value of a guest to me on this show. Like, my jaw drops, because everything that we do in our business or lifetime value of our customers that we get on board to our platform for our Book Direct websites and that sort of thing. So that's fascinating. Wow, cool. And just one last thing on this particular topic. I don't know if we did cover it. Why now? Like, I think I'm right in saying that it's everybody's kind of doing the same thing at the same time. Like, oh shit, okay, we do need to look after this. What was the inflection point? It was kind of this year. I feel it was sort of towards March, April, May, and this kind of change of talking about the way to rank higher on an algorithm, lifetime value, customer experience, which has always been important, but it's kind of that shift, it's noticeable.
I think there's two things I would call out. So first of all, it ties back to the supply and demand dynamics. Like, if there is more supply on the market than ever, you want to have the right carrots and sticks in the marketplace that truly will reward the partners that provide the best experiences. Yes, in certain markets there's compression, but there's less compression than ever, meaning that there's a variety of options, and we want the travelers to go to the options that are the best for the long term of the industry. That is the first thing. The second thing is, I think there's a trend in the industry of, like, vacation rentals, like even before online bookings, before the internet, have largely been about the annual beach bash to the Gold Coast or to Destin, Florida, or to Mallorca. And I think we're all looking at the economics of trying to get people to book more vacation rentals within a year, so that, ideally what's happening is you're not just booking your annual beach bash, but we're convincing you to go to
change my behavior rather than do the hotels and
go stay at a vacation rental and go to a winery and a drive-to location for a weekend. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity for our category to move beyond the annual beach bash. I mean, that's very much part of our strategy with the One Key loyalty program and stuff like that.
Gotcha. I'm so satisfied right now. I really love these kind of conversations. To me, it's a real testament to the value of catching up face-to-face and doing these sorts of events. One thing I did ask before we got on, I don't know if we've already covered it off already, and we've been a bit naughty, but for next year, what would you recommend people or property managers do to kind of strengthen their business, to position themselves in the best way for 2025? I
think 3 specific things. So evaluate your cancellation policy. With so much supply in the market, you're going to need things that are going to differentiate yourselves from others. All of the data, and I get it, like having a more flexible traveler cancellation policy can get a little nerve-wracking because everyone's afraid that as you get more flexible, you're going to get cancellations closer to the stay, and it's going to be harder to refill. All of the math shows that the conversion uplift that you get significantly outweighs the number of cancellations, the additional cancellations you get. That's the first one. The second one is lean into your promotion suite. I think every property manager that's worth their salt is doing smart things with length of stay pricing, dynamic pricing. But if that's all you're doing, you're not attaching the promotions to it, the OTAs aren't necessarily giving you the badging that's associated with it. So we're implementing a lot of promotions in the next year with last minute discounts, early bird discounts, mobile discounts, etc. And I would encourage the property managers to lean into that, because I think you're actually doing a lot of the behavior already, but you need to attach it to the promotion in order to get the badging and to get the value with the traveler.
I love it. One of a good friend of the industry, Matthias, who you haven't met, but Matthias is a chap who we've talked about this sort of thing, and his motto is everybody likes a deal. And you can still have the best. If you're just giving the best price, that's one thing, right? So you're competitive with the market, but you're not necessarily telling people that it's an unbelievable deal, but everybody wants a deal. Like, you like a deal, I like a deal, we all like
Tell them it's a deal.
Tell them it's a deal is basically what you're saying, and use the tools that are there to do it, and be clever with the way that you price, so you can offer some really good incentives and promotions, and it works. There's so much data out there, and if you go online and you look, it's all deals and sales. If you look at some of the fastest growing platforms in terms of e-commerce, I'm not going to name names, just look at the deals and the promotions and how they psychologically get guests their customers to order from them. Cool. All right. So what was our third one?
Third one was, to the extent that you work with Expedia or Vrbo or Stays, get in touch with your account manager, because they're going to be able to provide not just these macro level insights that maybe I've talked about today, but they'll be able to speak to how's that working in your very specific destination. And that's what I pay them to do. I pay them to understand that and to be able to provide you with data that shows you how to be successful on the site.
So this is a really good one. So get in touch with the account manager, but what are we going to ask them?
I think you can start with the very basics of what do I do to try to drive more production on your platforms? And I arm them with tools and expertise to be able to answer that question in a very detailed way with data.
Gotcha. So very straightforward. Just ask them how do I get more bookings, basically, and then the conversation can flow from there. I love them. I really appreciate your time for coming on once again. You're a repeat guest of mine, and I hope that we get to do these on a regular basis because there's so much things that change and that happen. And I know that the audience absolutely loves to see you coming on. I know that your episode was definitely one of the top performing ones, which is great. Everybody loves Tim. So look, thank you so much for your time. Is there any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, we're really looking forward to a great 2025 as a lot of our demand and traffic is coming back, and we're rolling out a bunch of new features that hopefully my account managers will be talking about with you soon.
So watch this space, and if people want to follow you guys, just jump on the website, follow you LinkedIn to...
Follow me on LinkedIn or Expedia Group partnerships. Those are probably a couple good places to start.
Two best places. All right, brilliant. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.